So, hello and welcome to this session of the Sibling Leadership Network Conference. This is called Where the Journey Leads, a conversation with Silver Sibs. My name is Emma Schaus-Garten, and I'll be your moderator for the session. If your camera is on, we can see you, and if your microphone is on, we can hear you. So everyone is automatically muted, but please keep yourself muted. Use the chat box or raise your hand, or use the raise hand function for any questions that you may have, and the presenters will respond to questions at the end. I will keep an eye on the chat box. And as a reminder, this session is being recorded and will be available to SLN members in our online archives afterwards. I am going to put the in the chat box. I'm going to put the link where you can get the PowerPoint handout. And now I'm going to turn the session over to our wonderful Silver Sib speakers. So Lynn, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Where the Journey Leads, a conversation with Silver Sibs. My name is Lynn Calloway, and I'll be the session or the panel host this evening. We're awfully glad that you chose to be with us tonight. We hope that when you leave, that you feel connected and that you feel empowered. Those are our highest hopes for the evening. Full disclosure, I'm also a Silver Sib. The diva here pictured with the red shirt and the tiara is my younger sister, Leah, on what was her 50th birthday. Leah is an amazing sibling, an amazing sister. I love her to death. But I want to tell you that we had a really wonderful time. I have to admit, we had a great upbringing together. I am, however, I got a little frustrated along our sibling journey. I'm an advocate. I'm a seasoned professional in the disabilities field. My parents thoughtfully planned for Leah's future, but as the journey went along and our parents were gone, I really found myself longing for a community of older siblings who might be going through some of the same experiences. As we are sort of outliers, we're people who have those uncharted experiences. Tonight, I'm joined by an amazing panel of Silver Sibs. So you'll hear from them tonight. We'll have Barb Corley, who's from Circleville, Ohio. She'll be talking about supporting her aging parents to plan for the future. Debbie Kunick from Cincinnati, Ohio. And she'll be talking about her amazing sister team. And finally, we'll have Bruce Handler, who is from Chicago, Illinois. And he's going to be talking to us about his experience as a sib-in-law. This panel brings such a variety of lived experience. And I think that's the thing that I really want you to hone in on, is that their stories illustrate the unique qualities of the aging family and the importance of siblings in it. Each of these sibs is supporting their sibling in slightly different ways, and they're in slightly different places along the journey. To frame our presentation tonight, I'd like to talk a little about sibs, Silver Sibs, and baby boomer and the whole baby boomer generation. If you were born between 1946 and 1964, then you are a baby boomer. Because baby boomers are the longest living generation, we happen to be the first generation of aging siblings. In Ohio, Silver Sibs is the name of a group of boomer siblings who, when we got together at the Ohio Adult Sibs Conference, felt that we had something in common. We were all feeling a little stressed, a little misunderstood by systems that we were interfacing with. And all of us have brothers and sisters with intellectual, physical, and/or other disabilities. Now, what about baby boomers? Well, we were the wealthiest generation until 2019 when we were unseated by millennials. We inherited the strong work ethic of our silent generation parents. We are working longer than any generation over time. We've coped with more change than any other generation. We've gone from the phone cord in the wall to the cell phone and the seatbelt to the self-parking vehicle. We have the dubious reputation of having the highest divorce rate as of 2017, but we really enjoy problem solving. Baby boomers bring that work ethic and that problem solving energy to caregiving. According to the Centers for Disease Control, baby boomers are living longer because we're receiving such amazing medical care. The same is also true for our parents and our siblings who have developmental disabilities. According to the CDC, baby boomers account for nearly 40% of all US caregivers. Almost 62% of them, those caregivers, are women. And just almost a third of the baby boomers are caregiving for 20 hours or more per week. The CDC further notes that of baby boomers, nearly 42% are taking care of an aging parent. This research also showed that in addition to parents, we may be taking care of partners, spouses, friends, as well as other extended family. And because we're all living longer, we're of course taking care of multiple generations of our families. So I think earlier we heard about the Dagwood sandwich. I think many of you are familiar with that. This double-decker caregiving kind of has an impact on this older generation. We tend to have more chronic health conditions, and 63.4% of baby boomers report at least one chronic health condition. And how does this data translate into the lives of siblings? Well, 60% of us anticipate becoming a caregiver. Like the general research, more siblings caring for brothers and sisters are female. There have been questions about how close what will determine how close I am to my brother and sister. Well, a lot of the variables include your birth order, how far apart in age you are, and later on in life, how far apart you live. And of this generation, of Sibs in general, 19% expect that they'll be living with their brother or sister with an intellectual or developmental disability. Now, I share this data with you to give you some qualitative insight into the Silver Sib. And maybe you see yourself in this data as well. I also wanted you to hear this information to sort of frame the presentations that you're about to hear from our panelists. So our first panelist tonight is Barb Corley. Barb is the self-described fun sister who's currently doing the very serious work of partnering with her parents to plan the best life for her sister Bonnie. Barb has found her voice as a Sib and is now helping her sister Bonnie on her journey to being heard and valued. As a certified family caregiver coach, Barb is also helping other family caregivers. She's also part of the Silver Sibs group that first met in Columbus back in 2018, and she continues to be a supporter of the work. Her family is approaching a transition point, and Barb is supporting her aging parents in future planning. So please welcome Barb Corley.
Thank you, Lynn. Hi, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story. So I thank Lynn and Sibling Leadership Network for this opportunity. I will start by full disclosure. I am not technically a baby boomer. I believe I am Gen X. I lose track of what all those are. I was born in 1972. My sister was born in 1975. So my sibling journey began when I was about 4 years old. My sister was born completely healthy and contracted bacterial meningitis at the age of 5 months of age. It basically riddled her system. It left her spastic quadriplegic with cortical vision impairment, nonverbal, non-ambulatory. So she requires 24-hour care. And pretty much like Lynn alluded to, I reached a point several years ago where I didn't know any other siblings. And I still have yet to meet anyone whose situation is as unique as mine. Most of the siblings that I meet, their siblings are higher functioning, can live independently. My sister is not in that circumstance. She requires 24-hour care. So I felt very much like an island, and I felt very much like a unicorn, as I jokingly said. So I sought community and I sought resources, and I attended the Ohio Sibs conference in Columbus, I believe back in 2018 for the first time, maybe 2017 for the first time, and just started connecting with people. And I realized pretty quickly that while our circumstances may not overlap, our overall concerns and issues and stresses do. So I guess I would start by saying I loved being a big sister from the time my sister was born. I've always been hands-on with her. I remain hands-on with her. I recently quit and left my corporate job, and I help care for her. She lives with my parents. I help care for her three full days a week. I felt very early on that I would remain a strong presence in her life. Given her level of disability, she is what I consider, what I call the most vulnerable of the population, because she can't defend herself. She can't speak for herself. So advocacy was very important right out of the gate. So I've stepped into that role, and over the years, I've stepped into it more and more. One of the things that prompted, one of the most powerful things that prompted me into action was at the Ohio Sibs meeting. They were talking about future planning. And up until that point, I would say that was, I think the first one was 2017. I thought this stuff was all in line. I thought my parents had a trust set up. I thought everything was in line. And I came home and shared all this information, and my parents were like, no. And I have to say, I kind of panicked, because my fear is, when we reach that time, my parents are both in their early and mid 70s now. And when we reach that time when they're no longer here, I didn't want the stress of having to grieve and handle paperwork and legal matters and what have you. So I slowly started approaching the subject, and my dad was on board right away. My mom, you can see in that picture, I loved her to death. Oh my goodness, that picture makes me smile. My dad was on board right away. My mom is very tied up in the day-to-day routine, the business type thing, all the business, handling the household requirements and what have you. So she found this incredibly overwhelming. It's a heavy subject. Nobody likes to talk about their mortality. And it was very scary, because from her perspective, she didn't think there was anyone that would step up and help. So it took me probably every bit of a year of slowly bringing the subject up, until finally she exhaled and she said, I know, you're right. We have to do this. She said, I don't have the emotional bandwidth to do this. If you will take the lead, I will gladly follow. So I found a fantastic special needs attorney out of Columbus, and we started the process, and I made the appointments, and we all met there, and I was heavily involved, and I just basically took the lead. And I was really surprised. They just let me, and it was so freeing, and it was so empowering for me as a sibling. And when it was all said and done, my mom just gave this big sigh of relief, and she said, I dreaded every bit of this, but I have such a sense of relief that this is in place. And it's so freeing to know that. And so that was like that was a big win for me at that point. I thought, okay, so since then discussions have been easier, and it just was kind of the catalyst to get all these major discussions moving, which are so heavy and so just overwhelming, and so many levels. But there is a sense of freedom when they are done and you make progress on them. And you can look back and think, okay, I can't plan for everything for the future, but I feel like I've done what I can at this point. And we were really surprised at what a warm reaction we got from the folks we asked to step up and, would step in as her trustee, and it turned out to be a beautiful experience, as strange as that sounds, talking about death and mortality. But, I've advocated for her my entire life in terms of her world is very small, and I do what I can to bring the world to her because she can't go to it. If I had one wish of something that had gone differently along her path, I would say I wish that the community services that she received, I guess, strived a little harder to reach out to her and her level of disability. It became much about parking her in front of a television as entertainment every day, as opposed to going to her and tapping into what her abilities are. While they are limited, they are still there, and you can still reach her. And making that effort to try and reach her is not difficult, but I wish there had been a little bit more enthusiasm and effort to try and do that, because I feel like we started to do that, but it was kind of late in the game or later down her life. But we reached that point, so it's a win regardless in my book. But if I had one pearl of wisdom to share, I would say celebrate the small wins. The positive things and the small wins and the movement forward with her over her life have been incremental, and they have been slow, but they have built on each other. And she's just a fantastic, happy little soul who's taught me so many things in life. And I can't even begin to, I can't even begin to list them. But yeah, so that's a little snapshot into my story. I hope I didn't take too long and I stayed on track. Cool. Well, thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Barb. I was trying to unmute. Thank you so much. No, that was wonderful. And again, we'll have time at the end to ask questions and dig deeper if you would like to. But thank you, Barb. We appreciate you sharing, because those are difficult stories to share sometimes. That will inspire someone to approach their parents boldly so that there's a plan in place. So our next presenter is Debbie Kunick. Debbie Kunick is the younger sister of the iconic Linda Kunick, also known as the Butterfly Lady. Like many of us, Debbie began intuitively supporting Linda at a very young age. She continues in that role even today. Debbie safeguards the vision that gives her big sister Linda a dynamic life. Their journey continues into their retirement, centered by advocacy, faith, friendship, and choice in their life as a sister team. I now give you Debbie Kunick. Is she able to unmute? Yeah, she's still muted.
Debbie, you're a co-host, so you should be able. I wonder. I just clicked.
There you go. She did it.
Okay,
she's
great.
Unmuted now. You're ready to go, Deb.
Okay, do I need to start over? Yeah. I'm a school teacher former school teacher teaching 7th and 8th grade language arts, the director of Girl Scouts in Kentucky and Iowa. My family is of my parents, John and Irene, my older sister, Sandy, Linda, and then myself. Linda is an artist and a self-advocate. You can see some of her artwork behind me. She worked for 40 years at RHC Envisions, and she also within time spent 10 years with the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities Council, serving on committees and as an advisor. She is now sharing as task force for self-advocacy, and she works with still the Ohio Department of Disabilities, Developmental Disabilities Council. Our team, and I was glad that Lynn said sister team, because that's how Linda refers to us, that everything we do, and if we accomplish it, and even if we don't, whether the project is big or small, she says, wow, we make a good team, don't we? So it was great that that's how she named us. We are close in age, 13 months. And of course, I always remind everyone that she is older than I am. At a young age, we had our own language. Linda has speech difficulties. It is much better as an adult. You have to work at it, but she does. And she had such a difficult time of it when we were small that we had our own language and our own way of talking that my parents and my sister Sandy didn't understand. And we always thought that was kind of fun, that they didn't know what we were talking about. I also, Linda's had difficulties in school because she does not read. She also has short-term memory, which caused problems in learning. We went to the same schools together, and she was in special ed classes, and she absolutely hates that term, special ed. We graduated together, but she had to have a job before she graduated. And my father and Linda's high school teacher worked really hard and made sure she had a job at that time. She worked for 40 years with RHC, which is now called Envisions. And because of this job, our family became aware of all the availabilities of helps in the county, in the area, and in organizations. We didn't know anything about that. And probably just as your parents maybe didn't know either, my mother and father, when they found out, they said, we don't need that. That's charity. We can take care of our own. Well, we've learned that, yes, we take care of our own, but we share the responsibilities with organizations that can help us. After I was teaching for 10 years and working in the Girl Scouts for 7 or 8, I decided that I wanted to do another job in Girl Scouting, which meant I had to move out of the state and live somewhere else. Now, Linda and I discussed this. We talked about it and what it would mean for her and how did she feel about that. And we had been renting a house together in Cincinnati, and we were doing very well together. But, you know, I explained to her what my needs were also, because we were always talking about hers. And I said, what do you want to do? How will this affect you? Do you want to go back home with your parents? She said, no. And you're giving me a place to visit. So we talked about and looked for an apartment that she would like. It was close to home, close to work. She could walk around, was close to stores and on the bus line. When we rented our little house, we were on the bus line then, and she used the buses very well. So this is what we looked for. So we then said, okay, so we found a place to live. Now what? So we worked on life skills, on how to take care of herself, how to do her wash, how to shop, how to be safe, how to use her phone, how to do things that would make her an independent person. When she felt good about it, we talked to our parents and we talked to Sandy, because Sandy was going to have to help her with her money management. And so they said, okay, let's try this. Let's see. I then looked for a job. I moved to Iowa. She called me absolutely every day. She even called me at night on my answering machine at work so that she could hear my voice and leave me a message. And she then eventually, it was once a week or once a month. And then, yes, she did get to visit me, so she was able to travel. While I was in Iowa, Mom and Dad both became ill, so I moved back home. But before that, Dad took Linda to find another apartment, one that was newer and nicer. And so he became part of her living alone. And he helped her with the move, which was good. And they had an office at that apartment complex, so they could help her as well. Well, when Mom and Dad became ill, I moved back home. And in 93 and in 94, my parents died respectively. Dad right away, but Mom took a year. And we took turns, and Linda took her turn to help take care of Mother at home along with hospice. And it was wonderful times. I moved home with Mother so that I would take the night shift and be with her. Linda was during the mornings, and then my sister Sandy would come in the afternoons. And it was a blessing for Linda that Mom passed on when she was with her. I had left the house to go to the store, and while I was gone, Mother passed. And Linda to have that blessing to be with her and to say goodbye to her was really good. And Linda then didn't talk about it a lot and still hasn't talked about it, but she was able to express herself on death, the afterlife, and what it means to be gone. She also was able to talk about my passing and her passing, which we had never talked about before. And she always says, if one of us should die, I said, oh, good, you're going to give us forever. I like that. And this then gave us the opportunity to move forward with the things we needed to do. Linda has now continued her life, retired. I'm retired, so we're two Silver siblings having the time of our lives. Linda continues her advocacy work. She works with Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities when she can. She works with Hamilton County Developmental Disability Services. And she even works more with her artwork. She Zooms, she's become a Zoom queen, and she does classes on Zoom, and she goes to schools and does art classes with children. And She has become a real advocate for those with disabilities. 15 years ago, we decided to buy our house, and it had to be a Jim Dandy house. And we worked with LAD, a living assistance for those with disabilities, and with Housing Authority. And we, again, had to find a location that was near where she wanted to go, stores, bus, walking availability. And we found that, and it couldn't be too far from the family or they wouldn't travel. We also made sure that it was a house that she would be happy in, and she felt like she could alter it if she had to for her physical needs. So those were the plans as we looked at houses. We love our house, we love our neighbors, and we couldn't be happier living together. Sometimes. We have discussed when and if Linda or I pass. And if Linda is left alone, we have talked about it together. We've made financial decisions. We've talked about insurance and made those decisions. We've made a decision on a funeral home, where we want to be buried, which things we want to give which nieces and nephews, so that the family won't have to take care of those things. That's something that we want to do on like we want to do it. But she will, if she's left to her own, she will need someone with her. Being together a long time, we have found that she needs someone with her at night from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. She doesn't cook, so she needs someone to cook for her. And she gets up at 4 or 5 o'clock every morning. So once she's up, she's fine. So she says, I don't ask for much, just somebody to spend the night with me. So, okay. You know, looking at our story, you know, any family members that are living together, they have some tense moments. Each one has the things that they're looking at and wanting. And I think it was important for Linda and I to talk openly about the things that she wants, that I want, that we speak openly about sharing our vision for the rest of our lives. I have always made it the most important thing in my life to treat Linda as an adult. She's 73. I'm 72. She is an adult, and she's been an adult for a long time. So she knows what she wants, and she knows what she can have. We just need to discuss it, make sure if it's possible, if she can afford it, if I can afford it, if we can afford it, then it's something that we can do. Thinking of that, she, as an adult, she also has needs and wants. And in 1996, we went to a religious weekend. And Linda has always been a Christian. She has always followed Jesus' lifestyle and his teachings. But has never really felt like there was a purpose that he wanted her to do. That weekend, he spoke to her and made sure that she knew she has a purpose. And the voice of Jesus told her that her purpose is to share for those who cannot and be a good advocate, to help those who can share how they can do that and how they can make their point known. And the other thing that she became was a missionary. Linda has taken 23 mission trips, 20 to Nicaragua, 2 to Costa Rica. And she's leaving this November. She's going again. She knows what her risks are. She knows what she needs to do and what God wants her to do. She's going to build houses for people who need them. And she is very strong about that, about what is her purpose. And if I can leave you with and kind of wisdom, treat your sibling as a person, as an adult, and respect each other. You know, there's no more fun can you have than being out together and learn something new. And we do that whenever we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Excuse me, I have the distinct honor of knowing Miss Linda. And she is someone you want to know. You definitely have the opportunity. You want to hang out with Linda. She's amazing. By the way, we have our butterfly art all over our house. Our next speaker and our final speaker is Bruce Handler. Bruce is a Sib by marriage. And in recent research, I found that they referred to Sib-in-laws as the unknown members of the disability community. Though the dynamics can be complicated, their perspective and support make Sib-in-laws a real gift to their families. We're fortunate tonight to hear the male voice in this story, and we thank Bruce for sharing from the view of a Sib-in-law. I give you Bruce Handler.
Thank you, Lynn. A hard act to follow. I think I've been conferencing as long as Don has, but this is the first time I have ever done a presentation after happy hour. But from eavesdropping on the different rooms, I found that many people were around the world, the Philippines, Manila, Japan. And so some were up at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm happy to report that most of them were drinking water. So with that in mind, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for all the hard work that Amy's done and the rest of you. It's a different perspective having not been raised in a home that has a sibling with disability. What you see before you right now is a family of 8 with the girls in the background and a granddaughter, and the 3 males all with on the autism spectrum in the front. Nora, who I courted years ago, is second from the left. That was the Fox family, and they certainly lived up to their name. But I'll share a couple of brief stories given the hour in the evening and leaving it open for question and answers about Patrick to the left there in the foreground, the one who is in a suit and tie in the middle, is Marty, the older brother, and then the youngest of the family of 8 is Michael. And again, they came from a family where unfortunately they lost their father at an early age in his 40s. I was in my early 30s and started dating Nora. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay. And coming in to a family with the sisters being strong, the mother being very strong, was not easy. And everyone, when they first start courting and dating, is seen as the outsider, and certainly I was. let me tell you briefly a couple of stories about Marty, Patrick, and Michael, and then I'll give my parting words and open it up for questions. Marty, being the oldest, and all three are verbal. We traveled out east to go to the next slide. We went to a conference out east, and Marty wanted to play hooky, and he hooked up with a friend named Chris Burke, who is a television star in 2 shows, Life Goes On and Touched by an Angel. And another friend who is a sib-in-law. And I took Chris and Marty, and we went out to lunch and played hooky on the afternoon sessions of the disability conference out in New England. When it came time to pay the bill, they came up a little bit short. So my friend and I pitched in and covered their meals. And we went and rode around the countryside, stopped at a big box store after some time. And the 2 of them disappeared in the store to reappear at the checkout counter with loads and loads of CDs and DVDs. And I thought to myself and said to the other friend, I thought they didn't have any money. And then magically, they each came up with money to pay for the CDs and DVDs. And we kind of looked at each other in terms of just having our pockets picked, but we were happy and had a great afternoon. Patrick, if you go to the next slide, Patrick was kind of the I'm everywhere. He's the one on the right. Nora is a little bit older than that, as are the other 2. They've had a little bit of receding hairline, and Patrick's the one with the hat. Patrick was very obsessive. He loved to be active. He walked everywhere. It's sort of not where's Waldo, but where's Patrick? And he was well known by his community. Unfortunately, he was rushing to a very favorite rock climbing event that happened once a week. And he was struck by a moving vehicle, taken to the hospital. So again, weddings, emergencies, funerals, birthdays, special occasions, weddings, and so on, always were a challenge. So we got to the hospital, and Patrick was being treated in a very caring way. He was having some stitches done to his scalp where he had suffered a cut. They asked Patrick several questions and said, are you nauseated? And he said, yes. And I said, Patrick, where are you nauseated? He said, and pointed to his elbow. There were other things that happened like that, like, what's your pain level, 1 to 10? And he would say 14, and he would see that they were dismayed by his answer, but he always wanted to please people. Michael, who's there on the left of the screen, leaning in with Nora, was sort of the more concerned brother and had his special situations, one being an avid Cubs fan. And we learned quickly the 2 of those, when they went to Cub games in the park, the friendly confines of Wrigley Field, they would run up quite a bill because they both had appetites and thirsts, until we learned about rooftops where you paid a flat fee. And so they could have their 8 or 10 drinks and not be charged additionally. Let me finish by saying that I think conferences like this are beginning, and for the past several years, there's Marty with his girlfriend, Gwen, and he lives independently. And as I saw writing recently, I retired back in January of 2020 and then into quarantine. So it's been a tough year for everyone, and I have never done lots of Zoom conferences. They've always been in person. But my parting word would be, I wouldn't change anything, keeping an open mind. And I think the pearl is when you're dealing with families, especially as the quote unquote outsider or sib-in-law, that you be flexible. Otherwise, you will lead to frustration. And I'll stop there because I think we're going to try and avoid running over time and see if there are questions from the audience or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. And you could have talked longer. It'd have been just fine. I'm going to go to this slide and just ask you if you would applaud our outstanding panel. And I know that before we go to questions, I would just want to take a moment to do a plug for the Silver Sibs group. If I didn't mention earlier, I want to say that the pandemic was really, really difficult for the Silver Sibs group. We were taking care of our families, heads down, taking care of our families. So we are rebooting. And I wanted to just take a minute to invite you to join the Silver Sibs Facebook page. There's conversation there. There's information there, and it's a no judgment zone. It's a very safe place. It's called Silver Sibs Ohio if you look on Facebook, but we welcome everybody. We just had to distinguish ourselves. Apparently, a sib is not just a brother or a sister. I learned that during my research. So in this case, Silver Sibs are brothers and sisters who are supporting someone with a developmental disability. I want to welcome you to join. And I'm going to move on to
Lynn, I'm so sorry. We are out of time. This was a fabulous panel. Thank you guys so much for sharing your stories. And I know you guys could talk about this for hours and hours. So I would encourage you all to join that Facebook group, connect with our panelists later in the conference. The mindfulness session has started, and the link is in the chat. And have a wonderful evening, everybody. Enjoy the next session.